Hello everybody, I'm Chuck Gibson. This is Taking Stock with Art Jarvis, a bi-weekly discussion on the local, national, and global economy and how it impacts your personal financial health and wealth. Now, here's Taking Stock, episode number 70. Welcome, Art Jarvis.
Chuck, how you doing today?
I'm great. Had a wonderful Easter weekend. Happy Easter Sunday.
Yeah, great Easter. Beautiful day.
And as you said, the first Easter for AJ, RDJ.
Whatever. Yeah. Yeah, he had his first Easter, so that was maybe one of the first, and like I said, for a 2-week-old, he didn't really do that great of a job in the Easter egg hunting, but we'll continue to work on the training, right? The good news is I get all of his chocolate, so that's fine. Yeah, so we're good.
And I know that you're not eating all of that chocolate because
not all at one time.
We're all trying to take care of our own health, and that'd be too much. But anyways, the blessings of family at Easter, good stuff. And so
same to you.
And we didn't do the Easter egg hunt, so that tradition has fallen by the wayside here. But had the family for the Easter banquet on Easter Sunday. So
that's the fun part. So.
Yeah. God bless Sue. You know what I said? At the end of the day, when everybody's gone, it was pretty good sized group this year with the family. And we sit down and, you finally you exhale. And I look over at Sue, and I think I say this every, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, every year. I look over at Sue, and I said, "You did it again."
You did it again. There you go. Precisely. Good dinner, good afternoon, good evening, everything. So gotta give them kudos to the moms. Yeah,
absolutely.
They get the job done, and I will say, Kim hangs on to tradition. So we did have some 30 and 40 and 50 and 60-year-olds running around hunting for Easter.
Well, you got to share. We talked offline. We do that all the time before we start recording. This episode number 70. But we talked offline, so you got to tell the people the story. So now, how many eggs were hidden for the egg hunt?
Well, the Easter Bunny let us know that he had hidden 40 eggs.
Right.
Yeah, so it was nice to know.
And then when it was all over,
we had found 39. But after everyone left, the Easter Bunny's assistant happened to figure out where the other one was. And it was underneath something, so that caused us problems.
Now, and inside the Easter egg was
just a little candy, bite-sized Snickers and stuff,
good deal.
M&Ms and things. Yeah, good.
But all 40 eggs have been collected.
Yes, we won't be tripping over them, running over them with the lawnmower or anything like that. So that's it's one thing to hit a hard-boiled egg. It's another thing to hit a plastic egg with the lawnmower. So
those are two different things for sure.
Right, exactly.
Well, sticking with tradition, we'll get back to the money talk. Here on Taking Stock. Let's take stock as we are now on this Tuesday after Easter. And I told you, Art, for the listeners, I just told them a few minutes ago, I said, I have no idea what's going on in the economy. I mean, it was Holy Week and it was Easter Sunday, and now it's the Tuesday after Easter, and whatever we talk about now is going to be brand new to me today.
Right,
so, for the listeners too, I hope.
There's a lot of interesting things going on in the world.
Let's
be clear about that. And it's funny to me, like a month ago, we sat here and we talked about pennant formations and things like that, and usually what happens is you get a pretty substantial move one way or the other, and of course I should learn my lesson somewhere down the road, but I made a comment that that things were generally positive. Things were, and so if I thought we were going to have a big move, it would probably be in a positive direction. So, and then a few days later, we started bombing Iran. So it's like, well, wrong again, Jarvis. But it's there's a lot of uncertainty. Let's be clear about that. It's just, there's a lot of rhetoric going on, and the rhetoric to me is interesting and not really in a good way, to be honest. But you still sit back and the S&P 500 is down 3%, maybe 4%. It's nothing drastic, and you look at some of the international markets, they're actually doing better than that. You look at some of the higher dividend yielding stocks and things, they're definitely doing better. But the bigger change from the last 2 weeks ago is since then oil hit $100 a barrel and closed above it. Well, today we're sitting at $115 a barrel,
right.
So we're up 15% basically from where we were a couple weeks ago.
Right.
And it is being reflected at the pump because it's $3.99.9 for gas, which what I like to call $4, right? So, and you're at $5 for diesel and things like that. So, and people in California, so I can't remember who was talking about it. It was $6.57 a gallon. So, but
oh yeah,
that's a lot of that's self-inflicted. But it's So the problem is, and trying not to ramble here, but the longer this goes on, and the longer we have higher fuel prices and things like that, it's going to start to have an impact. Okay, and then we talked about if it's a short-term thing, how things generally go back to what the trend was before it all started. We're still in that mode, but how much longer is this going to take? And you and I were talking a little bit offline, and this is the market me talking, but I'm a much bigger fan of just rip the Band-Aid off and get it over with instead of kind of doing a slow bleed kind of thing, or it's just here we are. We're 2 weeks later, we're still kind of having the same conversations and the same rhetoric and things like that, and there's this back and forth going on, but what did we accomplish? And I'm sure I don't think the answer is we haven't really accomplished a whole lot in the last couple of weeks. So other than oil prices continue to move up every time there's a discussion about whatever the word is you want to choose today, but just doing away with an entire island of oil and things like that, and but then it's the whole thing with the Strait of Hormuz. Thank you. It's interesting to me.
Karg Island and the Strait of Hormuz.
How do you say the island?
Karg.
Thank you. All right. Yeah.
That's how I say it.
Yeah, that works. It's better than me saying.
Somebody could correct me that knows better than I do, but I'm pretty sure they're calling it. It's being pronounced as Karg Island.
So there's a whole lot of this hand and this side hand going on. The interesting thing, once again, is that we just haven't seen this. We're not even down 10% on the market, which would, to me, is just kind of a normal pullback. Or you want to look at, we're not down 20%. We were down 20% last year, this time of year, because of the potential of what the tariffs were going to do.
Right.
We saw what happened there. So, we're kind of sitting here. We just seem to be in kind of a wait and see mode. But we were worried about the employment numbers a couple of weeks ago, and we got a great employment number last week. It was 100,000 higher than expected, and the unemployment rate actually dropped down 0.1%, still in that 4.3% range. The other thing is now we just finished up the first quarter last week, and we're heading into earnings season. Well, guess what?
Right.
Earnings, the year-over-year earnings for the first quarter are supposed to be phenomenal, great. I think they're looking for earnings to be up 12.7%. Before the earnings have even come out, we've had 60% of the companies, nudges toward, more positive earnings numbers and things like that. So we still got that going.
Right.
We're not, we always go back to gross domestic product and 70% of it being the consumer. Well, guess what? The consumer still seems to be there. So, now, I'm not saying that can't change if this drags on longer, but...
I was going to ask, it's kind of a vague reference, this. Well, obviously we're talking about, the continuation of a war over Iran, and its impact specifically on, again, somehow the Strait of Hormuz seems to be just hugely impacting the oil prices and price per barrel. As you mentioned, $115 as we sit here today. And then at the same time, we hear all these reports, the Strait of Hormuz, that's not even where we get our oil. Right. There's nothing going through the Strait of Hormuz that has anything to do with, gasoline or oil coming to the U.S. So it's very interesting. But my question to you right now, what's your confidence level in this really, truly being, short term and not all of a sudden one of these never-ending wars?
Yeah,
this is just asking Art your confidence level that this is going to end much sooner than later.
I think my personal level of confidence is very high that this is a shorter term thing than a longer term thing. Okay, we've already, if you believe what you hear, we've inflicted substantial damage to the country of Iran.
Well, and that takes me, I'm going to call you out on one thing. So it's like, exactly what have we accomplished in the last 2 weeks? Mm-hmm. That's those were your words a moment ago. And I don't know if you saw me rolling my eyes and going like, what do you mean? But so anyway, continue with your thought now, after being called, is in fact, there's been a lot of damage done to, we'll just use the term the regime in Iran. One, again, if we are to believe the reports, and it's hard to understand because we don't know who's who or what's what, and it's not like a free election and things like that. So, but supposedly we really took out the regime that was in control for the last 47 years, raining terror on the world as they wished, when they wished. So then there was like some follow-up leadership, and we kind of understand that whoever that was, I know the one mouthpiece was taken out pretty quick.
Yeah.
Which I don't mean to be crass or crude about it, but I watched when they aired his, I don't want to call it a speech, but when they aired his proclamation, about what's going on and, still the death to America. And I thought, he's just stupid. He's a dead man. Yeah. He should have shut up. But anyway, the day they released that, and I said, and I was kind of like, why don't we just take him out now? Yeah. Because he's just still instigating trouble. And then he was gone the next day. So let's just say that was regime 1 and regime 2, because he seemed to be a leader that was still from the Khomeini side of things. Yeah. Part of his soldiers, so to speak. But we don't know. So a lot has been done to accomplish, potentially the change necessary to limit the terrorist aspect of Iran's leadership.
You're right.
So,
I would submit that their bench is pretty deep, though.
Apparently.
Yeah. So so that's it. How many layers do you have to take out before you get change, and how long does it take the people of Iran to step up and say, okay, now we're going to take, and that's what needs to happen. Because you're right. We've taken out the military infrastructure and things like that. They still, still the whole way the war is with these drones and things like that, and what they're able to do with these drones. I mean, you and I could go to the front lawn and launch a drone out of the front lawn, and that drone is pretty darn accurate. And it doesn't. They don't cost. They cost $15,000 to make or something like that, and you can cause a lot of damage with them. And so how many of those do they have left? And how many things do they have? How many? We hit the naval part of it pretty good, but they still have speedboats and they still have underwater things, and for the strait. And it's interesting to me how that part is different. So, but then the question is, okay, you're right. So we've hit the regime, we've hit the military assets and things like that, and now we're threatening to start blowing up bridges and things like that. So now who are you impacting? So again, that's the whole that whole thing is where you start talking about uncertainty. Okay, that's what we're dealing with right now is the uncertainty, and every single day you wake up and you're trying to determine if something changed, and if something changed, how did it change? And I think that's where the markets are right now. It's like, okay, we were down 1% earlier today. Well, now we're only down 0.4%. But which is interesting because oil's up 15% in the last 2 weeks.
Well, let's talk for a minute, because these percentages and what's actually happened. Again, this has been 5 weeks. This is the fifth week as we get to April 8th. Today, obviously, as we record this, April 7th. So, fifth week since the beginning of this on March 1st, essentially. Getting to the numbers, S&P 500, even the Dow Jones hit a record number, NASDAQ, but the S&P actually touched that 7,000. And you have the ability to look right now and give us an updated number on the S&P, or more or less. What's it? So what is it at?
So we're at 65.85 at this very moment. We started the year at 68.45.
Right.
So we're not even down 300 points on the S&P 500 with all of this drama going on.
Right. So I mean, if we're seeking, what was interesting a moment ago, Art, as you were going on and you said, gosh, I don't want to ramble, but you brought in some very positive things as you were going through that. The fact that, we lost 20% before. Well, we're nowhere near that right now. Sure. We're at like less than 3%, or in the neighborhood of 3 to 4%. There's reason to be filled with hope, and to look at some positive signs. And again, that's one of the things that's been, most educational for me doing these episodes with you for, in our third year here, learning about how you look at the trends and what you're seeing out in front and what those mean, and specifically looking at the numbers. And so, you were pointing to, we just got good employment numbers, a better than expected maybe unemployment number even. The inflation numbers, this is the one thing that's interesting too. Inflation, we know it's like, there's still inflation.
Yeah. Right.
Which means prices are going up. Mm-hmm. At a lower rate than they were, but there's still inflation. The thing that's interesting is the gas prices, the oil prices. Because gas is the only thing, folks at home, listen up here. Gas is the one thing, because your groceries go up, inflation goes down, things settle, but they don't drop the price back. At the gas pumps, we see the gas prices fall back again.
Yeah.
Thanks be to God.
Yeah, well, they're jumping up and down 50 cents at a time right now.
Well, that's the thing. It drives you crazy when it jumps up like that.
But five weeks ago, we were at what, $2.79 a gallon or something like that,
or even less.
Yeah. So here we're up $1.30 as of today.
Yeah, that's an ouch.
Yeah, but and not to interrupt you, but here I am.
Oh, go ahead. Please.
But it's like, I don't want to sound like doom and gloom here. We're fine. Okay? I mean,
that's my point.
Are we better? Could we probably be better off than if none of this had happened? Probably. But is it like this substantial, we're going to have a deep recession? Are we looking down the barrel of a 2008 again or something like that? My answer to that is no. It's, this is no fun, and does it put some pressure on our economy and things like that? Most certainly. Unless someone does something really, really stupid, okay, we're okay. Okay, it's like, this is no fun, and it doesn't make me happy, and but am I worried that also we're going to, in the next 15 months we're going to be down 50%? No, unless something changes substantially. So, but I'll say it again, it's I would much rather just get through this and be done with this sooner than later. Let's be clear about that, So
that, you know what, that's just the sentiment that echoes true for all of us. Yeah. Who wants to see a war, period? And then once there is one, who wants to see it dragged out and drag on? So 100%, let's finish. I think, that's an interesting thing. Trump has said it himself. The people say, finish it. Mm-hmm. And that is, don't quit on it and don't buy into some agreement with the terrorists, in all honesty. Right. The Iranian, I don't know, I don't hear it referred to as the Iranian government. We hear of it as the regime because it's not a government. Yeah. And, you brought up an interesting point too as well, as long as we're still talking about that a little bit. When do the people rise up? Right. And, Trump has asked that question and said how much he wants it, but this weekend he really tempered it. So clearly he's getting a message from the people, and he's not making this up. That said, because his tempered remarks have been, they need to rise up, but I understand they can't. When they go out the door, they're shot on sight. Right. Yeah. I heard, I couldn't believe it. I heard a report, it was either late last night or early this morning. Unfortunately, my day ends with listening to the latest that's going on in Iran, and then it starts all over in the morning with the latest that's going on in Iran. And so I heard, whether it was at the end of the night or the beginning of the day today, the hangings are ongoing.
Right.
And so,
that's why I said they have a deep bench.
So
it's still going on.
Well, you know what? And we can talk about that. We won't. But obviously, that's the point of it has to be finished. There's not going to be what typically is a peace accord. Yeah. Or what is typically a ceasefire. I'm not saying there won't be some sort of a peace accord, or there won't be some sort of a ceasefire even before a peace accord, but it's going to look different than any that we've seen. Yeah. I think in history. That's just from what I'm hearing and what we've seen.
And you're exactly. And we need the U.S. and Iran aren't going to get along. Let's be clear about that, right? So we need that country, we need that government that has the ability to get in between the two of us and say, okay, let me give it to you straight. Hey Iran, let me give it to you straight here. This is where you stand, and this is where you stand in the world. Okay. Hey U.S., this is where you stand. This is where you stand in the world. Let's try to figure out a way that we're gonna make this work. You know what I mean? But it's still. I hear what you're saying.
It's going to look different, and it might look like a whole lot of decimation of infrastructure in the next 24 hours, or actually even less than that, according to what we're hearing. But we'll see. I believe, and you can dislike, or you can try to say he's on this side or that side, even about me. But I'm going to tell you what, I believe President Donald Trump when he says, I'm going to do this, because when he says he's going to do it, he does it. And you can't mess with that, whether you like it or don't like it.
And if that's a true statement, and you're right that, generally speaking, that 20% of the world's oil is not oil that we worry too much about. That's India and China, and they worry about that oil, right? That's, India's already, they're getting oil from the Russians, which we let up on, and they're going to the Iranians trying to get oil and things like that. So they're already trying to adjust. More important for someone in that part of the world to kind of step in and say, okay, let's figure something out, right? But it is amazing to me how much the conversation has changed in 5 weeks. Again, I don't want it to be all doom and gloom, because I don't think this isn't, knock on wood, this isn't the end of the world or anything like that. But the conversation has changed a lot in 5 weeks.
We've certainly changed the conversation here on taking stock.
Yeah. So where do you think oil prices were? So we're sitting at $115 a barrel. So January of
Well,
2000.
what was it?
January of 2008. Where do you think oil prices were?
Oh, they were over 100.
Oh yeah, $145 a barrel.
They were over 100.
Yeah. So again, it's relative.
We were paying $4 a gallon at the moment.
That's correct.
Here,
Right.
in Loveland, Cincinnati.
Yep.
And,
You're exactly
and
right.
greater Cincinnati, northern Kentucky, and let's even go over to the casino in Indiana.
Right.
But no, it was well over 100. I couldn't have told you 145 exactly. You've done your research.
Well, and we talked about
Well, that's why I have you as the featured person for taking stock with Art Jarvis.
The people, if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. There's your thing. And that's what makes the market interesting, because you look at the behavioral finance side of the equation, people do the same thing over and over and over again, and their reactions are the same, and how, and the reactions, they're a little different this time. I'm a little surprised they're not more severe, but other than that, we're still reacting exactly the way you would expect them to react. So,
well, we always like to finish on a positive note. You got about 2 minutes to take us climb the ladder of positivity in a time of uncertainty in the economic marketplace, and it starts with those employment numbers and a settling of inflation. But what's hitting the people's personal finances? Higher cost of goods. So what are the positive? Climb that ladder of positivity for me.
If you want to put a positive note on it, I'll hit you with volatility comes profitability, and with chaos becomes profit, right? Or with volatility comes opportunity, with chaos comes profitability. So, that's where we are.
That's what you said.
Is that what I said? Okay, good. It didn't sound like that in my head, but I gotta get a T-shirt made. But whether it feels like it or not, can I guarantee the market's not going to go down further? Most certainly not. But I can guarantee if you go and buy some things today, you're buying them at a discount. So.
Right.
And there are sectors in the market where you can still, it will benefit your portfolio. The higher dividend yielding things are well. We had started making a move toward international before, back late last year, beginning of this year, and that, knock on wood, is working out exceptionally well. So, unless you think something really bad's going to happen in the world, I would encourage you to put more new money to work. I can't guarantee it's going to be a home run next week, but it'll probably be a pretty good, it'll be a double or triple in the long run.
Well, we have focused many times on different episodes of Taking Stock, Art. We've focused many times on the youth. So talking to, let's just say the 20-year-olds, the 20 to 35-year-olds right now, like you just said, new money.
Yeah.
Put new money in, because, this is the time for you to do it.
Yeah.
And for those of us who might be a couple of days older than 35,
couple.
Hopefully we and you, whoever you are, have made some investments, and you're sticking with your strategies. As you said, Art, people started making, strategists, economists have been making those moves to those international markets, investor advisors. And so without that, and I know you've been told, and we're not supposed to use that word stupid, but without something stupid, you're saying on a very positive note, we're going to be okay.
Yeah. Yep, 100%. And I love the fact that you brought up that people in their 20s and their 30s is, their greatest asset is time. If you're 20 and 30, put away your $100, $200, $500 a month, whatever that number is for you. And if the market's going down, guess what? You're getting a bargain. And that just is going to get you to where you need to be. If I'm 20 years old, I want the market to stay cheap so I can keep buying stuff cheap. I'm worried about 40 years from now. But, I'm not.
Well, just a few weeks ago, the S&P would have cost you $7,000. Now it's down to $6,500.
Yeah. Exactly. So, Yeah, so there's the positive note. We're going to be fine. Not saying we're going to enjoy it, but we're going to be fine. And in a few episodes from here, we'll probably be having a completely different conversation about something completely different. So, yeah.
Well, I'm going to stick with end on a positive note. I'm not going to ask you to offer any further doom and gloom. Mm-hmm. Not that you did, but no more.
No more.
As we come to the close of Taking Stock with Art Jarvis from Jarvis Global Investments. Thank you to Jarvis Global Investments for sponsoring and continuing to support this effort. But Art, thanks for being with us today as we do come to the close of Taking Stock episode number 70.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck. We'll see you next time.
And for the listeners, thanks for joining us. We will be back in 2 weeks. For now, this is Taking Stock.